Hi, welcome to my channel. I have another Friday Reads video, but truth be told, I am a couple of weeks behind. I think for the sake of continuity, I'm going to continue to call these Friday Reads until I catch up. And if in a week or two I don't catch up, then I'll think of a new title for these videos. This encompasses the week ending March 29th. And in that week, I read 10 books, which is less than I ordinarily read, especially when you hear the page count. This page count for these 10 books was 2,503 pages. Other weeks I've read 4,000 pages, 4,200 pages, but this week was 2,500 pages. And I like keeping stats. Everybody does things differently, but the stats help me because they represent the trueness of my life in my everyday health. I've been in bed for nearly 2 weeks with a fibromyalgia flare, sleeping a lot, and dropping down to 2,500 pages in a week at 250 pages a day shows me that, yeah, Robin, you actually no. I'm going to take a second. I just did my math wrong. If I go 2,503 into 7 days, 7 goes into 25. Don't mind my slow math, but now I'm rather curious. All right, so it's 350 pages a day. I had written down that it was 250 pages a day, so I guess I'm okay with it. I should have been okay with it any which way it goes, and I'm sorry if I set things up or done it in the wrong way to act as if it's a big deal, because in some ways it is, and in some ways it isn't. Bottom line is, I love reading. I select books carefully. I read a lot of series, and for the most part, I really enjoy everything that I read. So to dive right into it, the first book is a print book, and it's called The Killer in Me by Olivia Kiernan. And this is the second part of a series, the Frankenstein series. I already read the first book, which was Too Close to Read, and if I'm not mistaken, I did that. Yes, I did that on my last video, so you've already got the review on Too Close to Read. And as far as The Killer in Me, as I mentioned, it's the second book. It came out April the 2nd. I did like this book very much. I gave it 4.5 stars. And we are talking about Detective Chief Superintendent, or DCS profiler, Frankie Sheehan. And she gets approached by her sister to look into the situation where somebody was convicted of murdering his parents and nearly murdering his sister. He served many years in prison, and now he's been released, but he's maintained this whole time that he was innocent, and he asked her to investigate things to prove his innocence. She doesn't want to do it. She believes the guy's guilty. He gives her an off feeling, but she agrees because she loves her sister to go ahead and do it. Now, at the same time that she's doing this, she gets a case where there's other murders, and as she starts to investigate these other murders, she discovers that there's some type of connection between the murder case that she's on now and this guy that is trying to prove his innocence. Now, meanwhile, as I mentioned, she really didn't want to take his case. She doesn't trust him, so she starts digging deeper and deeper into it, and when she does, she discovers that there's a lot of secrets that have been held. Her hands are full. As a profiler, she's running into really some deep things. It's very, very dark, and it's very overwhelming. And the thing about this story and the previous story, Too Close to Breathe, is they're told in first-person perspective, so we get her point of view the whole way through. It's an exciting story. I definitely could not put this one down. I read it straight through. Even though, by the way, that is part of the series, it's a singular story, so it can be read as a standalone. I got this book from Olivia Kiernan. The author herself sent me the book, but I had also requested it on First to Read maybe a few weeks prior, and it just came through as an available title. So obviously the author will get it, the blog will get it, Goodreads and so forth, but I'll also put the review on First to Read. The next book I read is a series that I'm reading slowly, only one title per month due to my busy schedule, and that is the sixth book in the In Death series by J.D. Robb. It's Vengeance in Death. It was originally released in 1997 and then re-released in 2004. Another great book in the series, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Now, as in many cases that Lieutenant Eve Dallas has, her husband, her recent husband, Rourke, who obviously is in every single book, he's tied into this case just as he was in other situations. Not only that, the murders that she has are connected. The murders she's working on are connected. And then another layer to this is that Rourke's man of business, Somerset, he's like his butler, he's his right hand, he's also involved. So his past comes up. And this brings a really interesting dynamic because from the outset when Eve met Somerset, it was hate at first sight for both of them. But she loves Rourke. Somerset works for Rourke, so Somerset is in Eve's life. Well, now she has to delve into her past, and she starts learning things about Somerset that just kind of change her view of him just a little bit. It's a great story. As always, Eve and Rourke, they're great together. The intensity of their relationship shines right through the pages. Because these stories are designed to be read in order, out of order, or all alone, it always touches on Eve's terrible, sordid past, the trauma that she experienced as a child, and how it has made her the woman she is, but also how it still affects her today. So that's touched on as well. It's a great book with plenty of intrigue, and a lot of emotion, and of course passion when it comes to Eve and Rourke. I really loved it, and I'm looking forward to the next book, and that is Holiday in Death. All right, the next book I read was My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This was released on March 26th. Another great book. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Now, in the blurb, it refers to a movie called Mr. and Mrs. Smith and the television show Dexter. I've never seen either one, but I've seen enough previews and even reviews to know that those two films, in the film and the movie, or the film and the television series combined, is what you're reading in My Lovely Wife. Now, it starts off as a great happy story. You got a husband and wife married for, I think, 19 years. They've got 2 teen kids, a house in the suburbs, great jobs. Everything is going for them. But they get bored. So how do they settle their boredom? They take up a hobby. They decide to spice things up. In some cases, when you hear of people spicing things up, it might be having an affair or something along that line. Well, no, they don't do that. What they do is they decide to make a hobby, and this hobby is murder. Yes, murdering vulnerable young women. Wow. I wasn't sure if I was going to read this because I didn't want in any way murder glorified, but it wasn't psychological thriller. It was done well. It talks about the wife whose name is Millicent. The story is told in the husband's first person point of view. His name is never named. She's the driver in this situation, and I want to say something, and after I wrote the review, it might have been a spoiler, but the way they do their planning is really kind of weird. But it worked for them, and everything was going peachy keen and fine in their new lifestyle until one murder changed everything. Honestly, I can't think of a single book that came close to this in context. It's macabre, but it is a debut novel. I think it's rather ingenious, rather brilliant. It's definitely twisted beyond belief. It was a page turner, and I felt that it could have only had one ending, but my review says, but did it. Yes, you gotta read this book. You gotta read it to the last page, the last sentence, and you might be just as shocked as I was. I got this book from Berkeley Publishing through the Edelweiss Review Program, and I appreciated that. The next book I read was Closer Than You Think by Darren O'Sullivan. This was released on March 15th, and another 4.5 star book for me. I think most of my books were 4 and 4.5 stars this week compared to last week when most of my books were 3 to 3.5 stars. So this was a better week. Okay, here we talk about a woman named Claire. We read about a woman named Claire Moore who has lived a rather successful 10 years after escaping a brutal serial murderer. Now, it's approaching the 10-year anniversary of her escape when she's recounting when the story is being delivered to us as readers. And it tells of all the trauma and all of her fears and her being a recluse and how much her mother has helped her. It also tells of her developing a new relationship and finally trusting this man and starting her life over again. However, her nightmare is not over. As a matter of fact, it has just begun. Remember, it's the 10-year anniversary. And I want to mention something else, and I don't think I put this in my written review. When she escaped the serial killer, the murder stopped. Well, as the anniversary approaches, the killings start again. So that's why her trauma or her nightmare is just beginning. The killer was called the Blackout Killer. And all of a sudden, her power goes out. Power goes out in another situation. And in that case, another body is found. And so definitely the killer is back. It was a tense read. I really was worried about Claire from the outset. She had a lot of fear. Her feelings were very raw. Her trauma, the loss, it was all very, very overwhelming, and it was palpable. It was a compelling book. The level of danger and the complexity of it all, the creepiness of it, it was sky high. As a matter of fact, I started this book one night, and I realized after a few chapters that I couldn't read it. My husband works at night. There was no way I could continue the book. So I read another book, and then I read this book during the light of day. That's how creepy it was. Let's say it was hard to close the review because the author did... You know what? I have to go back and check my blog. As I wrote the review, I dropped it down from a 4.5 to a 4 to even a 3.5. And I believe, even though my notes were incorrect at the outset, I already corrected my blog to give it a 3.5. And it's because as I was writing the review and as I was trying to close the review, I really was disturbed at the ending. And that's why I want to emphasize that I lowered my review to a 3.5. In any case, this was a HQ digital book, and I got it through NetGalley. And I am glad I read it, dark and creepy and scary as it was. The next book, in this book I read in place of Closer Than You Think that night that Tony was at work. And this is the Amish Spencer's Courtship. It was the best book to read after starting a scary book. This is by Emma Miller. It's an inspirational romance. I think this is maybe the fourth Christian or inspirational romance that I've read. I generally don't read them. I love them though. They're a great break from somebody that reads a lot of psychological and crime thrillers. This was great. 5 stars. Now, this is about a woman, and it's mentioned that she's kind of a spinster. Her name is Lovey Stutzman, and she had lived away from her family for a while, but she moves back home. Now her mom is remarried and pregnant, and she has a lot of siblings, and she really helps her mother out. Meanwhile, she doesn't date. She had been proposed to at one other time in her life, but currently she doesn't date, and there's a man that likes her, and his name is Marshall Byler. And when he asks her to take a ride in his buggy with him, at first she's thinking, you don't want me, you want my beautiful younger sister. But no, he wants her to go on the ride. So her younger sister dares her to go on this buggy ride, so she does. She has no idea that this is the beginning of the rest of her life. It was a very touching story. She's a beautiful, wonderful person, really cares about her family. She puts everybody first. She does doubt herself. She doubts any allure that she might have, the fact that Marshall could be interesting in her. I like the story because it's obviously it's a clean romance, but it's very effective because of the level of emotion in it. Also, it showed how vulnerable she was because remember the sister that dared her to go on the buggy ride? Her name is Ginger, and she was rather flirtatious, and Laurie doubted herself every time Ginger was around, or if she was around Marshall Byler, or if she was around any other men. So I like the way that was done. It was very well developed. The characters were well developed. Even Ginger was. I understood Ginger, and I hope that there's going to be more books by this author in this becomes a series, because I think Ginger would give a great story. It was a delightful read and had a great conclusion, and I look forward to reading more of these. Okay, the next several books I read were part of a series because I had a blog tour for this past week for the Oxford Mystery, which I won't be reviewing to the next video. Well, in order to read that, I grabbed the first 4 books in the series and I read each one of those, and I'm going to briefly review them. Since they all have the same primary character, each of these reviews will be rather brief. The first one, and it's called the Jenny Starling series, and the first book is The Birthday Mystery by Faith Martin, and I'll put the graphic up for that just a little bit longer since I didn't mention the title right away. Each of these books, the first 4 that I'm going to review in this video, I gave 4 stars. Now, I'll tell you about Jenny Starling just once, and as you follow the other 3 reviews, I won't be reiterating pretty much the first part of my written reviews because it's just going to be very fresh. We learn about how Jenny Starling, she's a highly rated and well-traveled, she's a traveling cook. She goes to various locations on various assignments, and she's an excellent cook. As a matter of fact, each book talks a lot about food. Sorry, my notes flashed up. Each book talks about food and how well she is at it, so I really like that. Well, in this particular story, in The Birthday Mystery, she's working at a location where 2 very posh twins are having their 18th birthday, or their 21st birthday, I'm not sure. But it's their birthday party, and when she gets there, right away she's greeted by the police because there was a body found in a pond, and the police had to determine whether it was an accident or not. Well, in any event, she goes right to work, and then another guest dies. So now there are 2 deaths. Well, this was a suspicious death, and there's no shortage of suspects because it was a party and there were a lot of people there. So as the murder is being investigated, it appears that it could have been the cause of poison, and if it was poison, Jenny's reputation is at stake because could one of her recipes have contained poison? So that's touched on. Well, I read each book in the series before I actually wrote any of the reviews, so I will tell you that Jenny is very adept at solving murders. She's a great amateur sleuth. This is pretty much a cozy mystery. I'm reading several cozy mystery series, and I love this one very much. Okay, I got this one from Jaffe Books and Nat Galley, and then I went right on to the next book, and pause for a second, put that graphic up, which is The Winter Mystery, and that's number 2. My notes are wrong because I wrote number 3, but I'm pretty sure The Winter Mystery is, yes, number 2. I'm going to ignore my notes and use my memory. All right, so we already know about Jenny. Now she's at another location, and this is at the Kelton Farm, and she's going to be working for a very affluent family during Christmas time. Well, as she starts, she's like, okay, I'm not going to deal with murder again. I'm just going to cook because that's what I love to do. Well, sadly, another guest has been murdered, and now she gets the chance to be an amateur sleuth again. She knew that things weren't quite right in the household anyway as she met each household member, but she, was going to just get her job done. And so when the murder victim died, everybody's rather shocked that one of the other household members, and his name is Stan Kelton, indigestion, I'm sorry. Why wasn't he killed? Why was this other family member killed? Again, just as in my other story, I did use the same phrase, there's no shortage of suspects because it's a small household, some staff, family members, and now Jenny and the police have to ascertain who the murderer was. By now, Jenny has attained a reputation as somebody who's really good at solving murders, so she has the respect of the police that are on staff here. Who are working on this case here. There's something about Jenny is she's a beautiful woman. She's statuesque. I think she's 6'1" 6 feet tall. She's gorgeous with beautiful blue eyes, so she always gets a lot of attention beyond the fact that she's a great cook. Okay, I did get this one from Jaffe Books and NetGalley as well. The next book I got was in the series is The Riverboat Mystery, another 4-star book, and this is the 3rd book. And of course, we're talking about Jenny Starling, the traveling cook. And this time she's going to be working on a luxury boat, and there's just a handful of guests. Well, what happens? Boom, another murder. So not only is there another murder, but she is the one who actually discovers the dead body. So she decides that her skills as an amateur sleuth are greatly needed. There's different detectives involved in this case, but they know about her reputation, so she works with them, and she quickly gets to work. The suspect pool is quite small, so it's just a matter of deduction, and we all know by now that Jenny is great at deduction. It was a quick read. Maybe, let's see, this is a Riverboat Mystery. It was only 199 pages, so it was a quick read. It had just the right amount of twists and turns to keep me interested, and I enjoyed it. I got this book directly from the publisher because I said, well, since I'm going to be reading the 5th book, I need books number 3 and 4, so they gladly sent them to me. Before I read the 4th book in the series, I read another book in a different cozy mystery series, and you've heard most of my reviews, and if you read my blog, you've seen all of the previous reviews, and this is for Mother's Day Murder, and this is by Leslie Meyer. I gave this one 4 stars. I didn't write down the year, but it obviously came out maybe 12, 14 years ago. This is the Lucy Stone number 15. So as I mentioned, I reviewed the first 14 on my blog. And this is probably my shortest review, one of the shortest reviews I'll do in this video, because it's pretty standard for me to read the Lucy Stone series. Lucy Stone is a mother of 4. Her son is married now. Her daughter's at college, and she only has 2 girls left at home. She's been married for many a year. She's a reporter, and she's an amateur sleuth. Now it's Mother's Day, as the title indicates, and her and her family are out to a nice restaurant having a family dinner. And in this, at this time, a lot of families are dining for the holiday, and another family comes in, and a woman sees people seated at a table that she requested, so she starts up a stink, and there's a big argument in the restaurant. And well, between these 2 women, one of them is shot in an open area and murdered, and now this is where Lucy jumps in and starts trying to figure out what happened. That's pretty much all I said, because everything after that would be a spoiler. I will say this, that I was very shocked at who the killer was. I read quickly, but I read thoroughly, and I would have never guessed. I got that one from the library. As a matter of fact, I got all of them from the library. The next book in the series is Wicked Witch Murder, and I'm not sure if I'm going to read that one. Now, back to the Jenny Starling series that I had talked about previously. The 4th book is The Castle Mystery, 4 stars. I believe this came out at the beginning of this year. And here we read obviously about Jenny Starling, the traveling cook that I mentioned already in the first 3 reviews that I've done. And in this particular case, she's working at a castle, and she's got a temporary assignment there. And now, as always, she's got to divide her time from being an excellent cook to being an amateur sleuth. Now, at this time, in this glorious castle, they're a very respectable host. Especially the lady of the house, I really liked her. And her and Jenny, at first glance, there was a lot of respect between them. So when the murder happened, the lady of the house said to the police that you're only going to get this done if you use Jenny Starling, because just as the police knew about Jenny's history and her past at solving crimes, through the grapevine, the lady of the house knew of them as well. As a matter of fact, she was the Jenny Starling. So I really liked it. Jenny didn't hold back 1 second. She jumps right to task. She has great deductive skills, and she figured it out. If you like cozy mysteries, I highly recommend these series. As I mentioned, I got this one from the publisher as well, and I appreciated that. And I went and read the next book, which is the Oxford Mysteries. And I'll let you in on a little something. If you have Kindle Unlimited on Amazon, all of these books are there in your Kindle Unlimited subscription. I will be putting the links to these in my description box below, but in case you're interested, go ahead and grab them from your Kindle Unlimited and get to read them for very little. Believe it or not, that is it. That's all 10 books that I read for that week. Hopefully in a day or so I will make the next video, but I'm going to be honest with you. I've got my traveler's notebook. I read, I read 9 books, and the week after, of course, during this time I was dealing with my flare, so I read 9 books that time. And of these 9 books, I haven't written any of the reviews except for one. So this video may be several days coming, because I think I'd rather write the reviews before I do the video. Or I may just do the video because I really pretty much remember the book. So we'll see. But that's going to be my next video. And then the current week I've read 4.5 books. So it's going to be another slow reading week. But that's okay, because I just want to have fun. I want to enjoy it. All right. Thank you for your time. I will be back soon. Bye-bye.